Welcome, everyone. We're so happy to have Naomi Gleit with us today. I'm Leslie Wolf-Creutzfeldt, Executive Director of the China U.S. Women's Foundation. We're a foundation that started about 5 years ago, and we are a platform for women-to-women discussions between China and the U.S. and Asian Americans. So, of course, it's a special thrill for us to hear from Naomi about her journey because, she works as one of the original employees of Facebook. So what a great role model for all of us and for women. So thank you so much, Naomi. Just a couple words about our speaker. Naomi is one of Facebook's first employees. She's worked on almost every major initiative at the company, including most recently the COVID-19 Information Center and the Voter Information Center. She's a founding member and a leader of the growth team that helped Facebook grow from 1 million people when she joined 16 years ago to over 3 billion today. Naomi graduated from Stanford with a degree in science, technology, and society, and she wrote her thesis on Facebook. She lives in Palo Alto, California, and she's originally from New York City. So Naomi, I'd like to ask a couple questions and then Lisa's going to also be asking. Could you tell us about your professional career? How did you come to work at Facebook and what has that journey been like?
And definitely feel free to interrupt me. I think Craig, it might be the static might be from Craig's phone.
It is, and I can't. I apologize. I can't find a mute button
Oh,
on my
well, I
screen.
think actually, hold on. I think someone else
Yeah,
can.
Leslie,
Oh,
you
you
should
did it.
be
You
able
did
to
it.
mute. Oh, good. Okay. And Leslie, you can mute the others if anyone hasn't muted.
Okay, I will.
Perfect, Craig. Thank you. So yes, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. Thank you, Dana, for asking me to do this. This sounds like an amazing organization. I did a little bit of research into what you guys do, and it's awesome. I am. How did I get to Facebook? Is a really good question. I've been there at this point for almost 17 years, which is company has existed. My dad can tell you that I went to Harvard for a year. I studied history of science, which is not a technical major. It is a sociology major. It looks at how science has progressed over the years and evolved. And then I transferred to Stanford. That was the beginning of sort of my entry into Silicon Valley. And there I studied science, technology, and society. It's a very similar major to the one at Harvard. In those days, this was very new, a new sort of discipline. These days, it's a very common field for people to major in and study. And I wrote my thesis on Facebook, and that's how I came to know Facebook. And it was through that process that I realized they had actually just opened up down the block in Palo Alto, California. I went in, I asked if they were hiring anyone who was not technical. Again, I wasn't technical, and they were only hiring engineers at that time. I went back day after day after day, and eventually I had an option to interview to be Sean Parker. This was Justin Timberlake in the Social Network movie, his personal assistant. And sort of the rest is history. Sheryl Sandberg, who's our amazing COO, often says that if you're getting on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat. And so being Sean's assistant was my foot in the door. I always wanted to be a product manager. That's the role that I have now. It is sort of like the conductor. It's someone, or the producer, someone who works with the technical teams, the business side teams to launch and ship new products. And now I lead the entire product management function at Facebook. So I'll stop there and let you guys ask any questions.
Naomi, I was going to ask, that was a great introduction to how you got at Facebook. What would you say to other young women starting out in their career to get on the right track, and also in Silicon Valley? How can they succeed?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would reference Cheryl's advice because I think that was a really good one. I really wanted to work at Facebook. I didn't really care what role. I just really believed in the company. Even back then, if you guys remember in 2005, Facebook was not a real job that someone could have. There was like MySpace, there was Friendster, there were some other social networking sites. But I remember telling my family I was going to go work at Facebook, and they're like, "What is that?" But I really believed that it would be more than what it was back then. And so I think Cheryl's point around getting a foot in the door, if you're getting on a rocket ship, don't ask what seat, is really good. The other thing that I would say is I was really worried that as someone who was not technical, not engineering, I couldn't really have a job in Silicon Valley. And that's completely not true. I run the product management function. Product management, some of us are technical, some of us are not. And I think a lot of women that I talk to are curious about being in tech, but don't necessarily have a computer science degree. And I think that's totally fine. The third thing I would say is I've had incredible allies, sponsors, mentors. Most of them have been men. One of my closest coworkers, Alex Schultz, is a gay man. My boss, Javier Olivan, has been a huge advocate for me. He is from Spain. And then obviously working in a company where Cheryl, who wrote Lean In, who wrote Option B, she's obviously a huge champion for women at the company, was incredibly helpful. And so in turn, I am a sponsor, ally, mentor for women at the company now and women outside the company. And indeed, we have a whole work stream around women in product, and that I run because I think this is one of the most important things that we can be doing.
Thank you.
I have another question. Could you tell us about yourself? Based on your article entitled Fully Both in Medium, your parents come from different backgrounds, including a Jewish American father and a Taiwanese mother. Of course, that's of interest to us, China, US, because we think, there's so much creativity in that mix. Could you tell us how that has shaped your identity and maybe a little bit about your childhood in New York City?
Sure. And, Dad, feel free to weigh in if you want to on any of this, but obviously we grew up in Brooklyn. Because of COVID, I'm actually back in New York because I don't need to be in Palo Alto anymore, which is where the Facebook headquarters is, because we've been remote for so long. Like you said, Dad, Steve Gleit is Jewish. He's from Long Island. He grew up in Huntington. My mom came to America when she was 26 or 24 rather, and she came from Taiwan. She came to study urban planning in Michigan, and I think that's where you guys met. And I mean, thank you for reading the essay. It is called Fully Both because I think that with a lot of what has been happening, with social, racial issues and the acceleration in those issues, I've just been thinking a lot about issues of identity and race, questions of identity and race. And I think that when I was growing up in Brooklyn, it was very rare to see someone that was half Asian or half anything, actually someone that was not, monoracial. And I look now and all of my friends have half Asian kids, actually. And it's a very, very common thing. And through the process of writing the essay, I got a lot of messages from people who are like, we're half Asian too. And I just wanted to create more of a awareness and identity around that. Even at Facebook, we have an employee resource group called Mixed at facebook.com. It's like employees that are just mixed race. And the reason that I like this community is because I think instead of viewing ourselves as half of something and half of another, we can embrace both aspects or multiple aspects of our identity. And we can also look at the upside, which is I think we can often bridge different cultures. And I think that's relevant to your work. So can we view ourselves less as partial or, fractions from 23andMe and more as bridges across cultures, which is actually, I think, a really amazing gift.
Naomi, I have another question. It's fascinating to think that you've been at Facebook from when it was small to when it became obviously gigantic. Could you talk about just that journey of how it changed working there?
Absolutely. I think it changed in so many ways, and in some ways it also stayed the same. And I get this question a lot. If I look at the ways it's changed, let's just look at the product. When I joined, it was www.thefacebook.com. It was a product for the website. And during the time that I was there, smartphones came out. And what was once just a website that had very little functionality, to be honest, it was just a digital version of a physical Facebook. I don't know if you guys remembered when you went to college, they usually printed booklets with like photos, the name and photo of your classmates. That's all that it had. That website got more and more functionality, like photos that you could upload, post on people's wall, message people. And then eventually smartphones came out and we realized this is just a way to connect with people at your school. And we need to develop an app for the new mobile devices. And so Facebook became really a mobile app. And if we look now, there's 3 billion people using our products, and it's not just Facebook. Facebook is responsible for Instagram, Messenger, and WhatsApp. So what started out as a really simple website, the facebook.com, is now a portfolio of mobile apps that have over 3 billion people using them. And then if we look in the forward, in the future, what are the next platforms? The web shifted to mobile, shifted to what we believe will be virtual and augmented reality. And that's why we also are responsible for a division of our company focused on headsets, virtual reality headsets, and augmented reality glasses and wearable devices, because we think that's where the next platform is moving. And to the extent that our mission is really just around connecting people, the product that we do that is Facebook. Facebook.com is just a very, very small part of that mission.
Thank you.
It's interesting, Naomi, we at the foundation do Gen Z Global Forums, and for the first forum, one of the organizers wanted to do something on the HAPA experience. And I was unfamiliar with the term. And of course, now, it is half white, half Asian American, and as you say, it's become much more common. And in many cases, like sounds like with yours, it's been a very positive experience. You took the best of both, but in some cases, it felt like a loss of identity and some confusion. And so I think that's where people like yourselves talking about your experience can be so positive, because we are in a new world and it's much more global, and yet somehow the old stereotypes still maintain. I'm sure that's something you at Facebook must be thinking, like, how can you create a platform that is inclusive and supportive? What are your thoughts about that? How you can move forward in a positive way?
Yeah, so I definitely have a lot of thoughts on it. And hapa, thank you for raising that, is actually a Hawaiian word that means half, like you said, half white, half hapa haole. It's short for hapa haole, which is half white. And I spend a lot of time in actually Hawaii, where I think being hapa is actually quite common, similar to how it is quite common these days in some of the communities that I'm in, like in Silicon Valley. A lot of the preschools are my friends' half Asian kids. Even my brother, who's half Asian, obviously married another half Asian, and they have half Asian kids as well. I think building and designing inclusive products starts with the team of people building them. And that's why I think the earlier question around how do we have more representation of women? How do we have more representation of people of color? Building the products is so important, because we're building products for 3 billion people that are all different kinds of people. And it's really important that we are sensitive to and responsible for all of our users. The thing that I would say is Facebook is a platform. We are building tools that empower people to do good. And so in particular, you read my introduction. It talked about me being the leader of the social impact team. That team only focuses on building tools that help a series of causes, help to advance a series of causes that we really care about. And those causes are equity, which is to get to your point around, like, how do we make our products diverse and inclusive? We also really care about civic engagement. One of the things that we were really involved in was getting out the vote. We set a goal to help 5 million people register in the most recent election. We accomplished that. I don't know if you guys use Facebook, you might have, or Instagram or Messenger or WhatsApp, you might have seen a lot of our messages being like, this is the deadline to register to vote. Because we have a really big platform, it's really important that people use their voice and vote. And we're gearing up already for the 2022 election, the midterm election in the US. And the third thing that we really care about is climate change. And so that's another area that we're focused on. So when I look at what my team is doing, we're building tools to advance these causes that we really care about. And I think climate change, civic engagement, and equity are actually all racial justice issues as well. They are all diversity and inclusion issues at the end of the day. And so we have a whole team focused on this.
I have a question. I was just at the Wall Street Journal Tech Conference, and they had a lot of great sessions, but they talked a lot about how video obviously has become such a major player. What is Facebook and the many, obviously, apps you have doing with video?
So video is absolutely the future of social media. I think in some ways, Instagram started with just photos. Everyone had a camera in their pocket. And now everyone has a video camera in their pocket. With the state of smartphones, you know, the video recording technology is so good. And so I think Instagram has moved from photos first to video. And I think there's a lot of different kinds of video. So you could have short form video. These are things like, you know, stories. I don't know if you guys know the new format on Instagram, on Snapchat. It's just about posting short videos that are ephemeral. They disappear after 24 hours. There are videos like you might see on TikTok that are like creative videos that are set to music and have different creative tools associated with them. And those kinds of short form video are very distinct from long form video, where you might be watching a full episode of a scripted TV show or something, for example, on Facebook Watch. We also have something called Instagram TV, and those tend to be longer form videos. I think that the most explosive medium really is short form video. You'll see this in the growth of TikTok, which just announced they had 1 billion people using TikTok daily. And I think that's because the new generations, again, are walking around with a video camera in their pocket. And in the same way, kind of taking a selfie was like kind of weird for me. Filming a video of myself is like very weird for me, but it's totally normal and organic for younger people who grew up with that. I think my dad is also raising his hand. Dad, was there something that you wanted to say?
No, I'm enjoying this very much. I'll just say one thing about Naomi in regard to the Jewish Chinese thing. Naomi is very adept at saying both oy vey and ayah, which are the two most common interjections in both Jewish, in Hebrew or Yiddish, and in Cantonese Chinese or Chinese in general. So that's all I wanted to say.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Dad. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Naomi, I have a question. Can you hear okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great. So you said you joined Facebook, you know, just as assistant, but you know the company, you know that's where you want to go, but now you are the VP for the whole product marketing group. So how did you grow from assistant who doesn't have a technical background to now, you know, just a product, you know, making sure all the product can be developed correctly? You know, it sounds like you have to have a lot of product information. So how did you grow from that point to now?
So it definitely wasn't a linear path. You know, I did a lot of different things at Facebook. We like to talk about a jungle gym, moving from one piece in a jungle to like swinging to another, you know, playground area. So it's definitely not climbing up a ladder. In my time, I worked on, like I said, assistant work. Then I did marketing, you know, for a period of times I was like in creative and then comms, and eventually, you know, I was like, I want to be a PM. I think that is my dream job. And so I just started helping the product management team do whatever they need. And at that time, I often tell this story, there was 2 floors in the company. Can you imagine? Facebook now has over 60,000 employees, but at that time, we all fit within one building on 2 floors. And the top floor was all of the business functions. And on the bottom floor was all of the technical functions. So what we call product, engineering, design, data. And I'd always sat on the top floor. And often I would go down to the bottom floor just to help out with projects, try to like shadow some of the other product managers, learn something new. And over time, I think I sort of like picked up the skills informally doing the work. And because I was also lucky, again, it was a rocket ship. There's so much opportunity, so much to do, too few people to do it. I was lending a helping hand. And so the day that I formally transitioned, I interviewed and I formally transitioned to product management, I moved my desk from the top floor to the bottom floor. I picked up all my things and I carried them downstairs. And when I got downstairs, all of the engineering team and everybody on the bottom floor was standing, innovation, clapping to welcome me as the new product, like formal product manager. And, from there, I think that I've really focused on adding value, not necessarily demonstrating how much value I add, just really adding value. And I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by managers, allies, mentors, sponsors who see that value and can advocate on my behalf.
Yeah, thank you. I have another question for Facebook. Minority women. How minority women? How does that how is this group supported, or growing up as you have influence from Jewish family and Chinese family? Do you see that translate as an advantage for minority women growing in a tech company, kind of in that aspect? Can you share a little bit on that?
Yeah, I don't think that being, I think there's a lot of ways I can look at my identity, actually. I can identify as a woman, I can identify as Asian, I can identify as Jewish, I can identify as mixed, I can identify as non-technical, I can identify as a New Yorker, and so there's different ways. And I'm not sure that in particular being mixed or being biracial I'm not really sure what impact that may or may not have had on my career. I think the biggest thing that I really think about, and I often talk to women about, is being non-technical. I felt like was the biggest challenge in my career. And that's why I always encourage, if I were to do it differently, I think I would have probably studied a more technical field, computer science, I think. And I say that because I think it would just help me in my current position better communicate and understand the engineers that I work with all day long. And if I think of other aspects of my identity, maybe being Jewish, being Asian, being a woman, I think these are all things that just help me connect to other women, other Jewish people, other Asian people, other, non-technical people. So these are just things that I view as advantages, actually, rather than disadvantages, because they give me more empathy and understanding for the various people that I work with. That being said, we are doing a lot at Facebook to encourage women to pursue more technical skills and training. A lot of this I'm lucky enough to have learned on the job. I can't code, but I can talk my way around it.
Yeah. I can see, Naomi, just from our session together, one of your skill set is clearness and the ability to simplify rather complicated, ideas and future vision in a way that everyone feels comfortable, like I can understand that. So I could imagine in the midst of being with a lot of engineers, your ability to translate really complicated subjects into layperson probably is worth more than a master's degree in computer science. Would you say that's true?
I think that is such a really great insight. And it's actually taken me a long time to see that. The kind of people that I want to hire for my team, I actually have, three things that I'm really looking for. One is are you a simplifier in a very complex situation? Because we have a lot of people that are very detail oriented, are very specialized, and we have a lot of complex situations. And so it's a rare person that can come into that situation and help create clarity. And so that's the kind of person I really want on my team. The second thing is really want someone who's really versatile. A lot of parts of my job, not doing the same thing every day. It's sort of very unique to the different kind of problem or crisis or goal or objective, whatever it is. It might require a very different skill set from me. And it's wonderful when people can be versatile, flexible, and just play a lot of different roles with different hats. And the third thing that I'm looking for is someone who really is mission oriented and company first. I think that I talked about really focusing on adding value rather than demonstrating value. I think it's also rare when you see someone who wants to help the mission, help the company as sort of their top line goal, rather than, necessarily advance their own career or move ahead in their own agenda. Obviously, you should have both, but I think just someone who's trying to do the right thing is really important.
I just have one last question. I know we're nearing the end. I know that Facebook has been very interested in education, and that's an area that we're quite interested in. And after pandemic, there's going to be more of a hybrid, online, but in person. Is there something that you think Facebook is leading in the area of education that can be an example for other platforms?
It's a really good question. I think I mentioned the areas that we are really focused on, at least on my team, on the social impact team, being around climate, civic engagement. The one thing I didn't mention is also health, physical and mental health. And education, we've talked quite a bit about. The truth is that I think the work that I do with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative in the primary school is actually where I think that a lot of the focus on education has been, not so much at Facebook. I'm on the board of the primary school, which is a 360-degree holistic approach to educating young children by bringing together their teachers with their parents, but also doctors. So it's like putting a school right next to a hospital, because we want to educate the child. A lot of times learning and the child's physical and mental health are really inextricable from each other. And so having a team of doctors, teachers, and parents that are working together to grow a child is a new model for education, rather than being so siloed. This is when you go to school. This is when you go home. This is when you go to the doctors, because so many of these issues are interrelated. And so I'm really proud of the work that the primary school is doing that is funded by the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. And that's an area where I'm on the board.
Any final questions, comments?
I had a quick question, just since it's fun to ask someone who's had the experience. Naomi, what's your day been like? I'm guessing with the website building as it did, you must have worked 24/7 for years.
Yeah, we definitely slept some nights in the office for sure. I think, Dad knows I'm always online, and there's always been a lot of crises. And so I really appreciate Dad and Dana just sort of being very understanding when I had to leave dinner or take a phone call. But to the point about how things have changed, again, like I'm just one person at a larger company, and I have an incredible team of these people that I told you that are versatile and Facebook first and simplifiers who do a lot of the work. And I can spend more time with Brooklyn, my dog. These days I can work it's a normal job. Before, I think it was a startup. I do have to run to talk to one of my coworkers, actually someone on my team, but it was such a joy to be able to talk to you guys. And I so appreciate you dialing in to hear what I have to say.
And I want to thank you so much. You really have been inspirational. I'll let you go. I want to give a heads up to everyone. We are organizing a Gen Z Global Forum organized by Gen Zers about climate change. So stay tuned for that. I think it will be quite exciting. So thanks everyone for joining. We will have future sessions that will let everyone know. And have a great day and be well.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
Naomi. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.